Day 2 of playing Minecraft in a Minecraft server. So this is Noble Realms, and like me and my friend are making a mob farm, and I'm gonna take this cobblestone real quick. It's not like he's gonna use it. Freaking Jesus! God, how much does he have? Also, couldn't he just use the water fountains? Like okay, give me this. Thank you, Blo. Thank you, Blo, because I needed.
Already in handcuffs before I understood what was happening. I was eating lunch at a diner with my friend Taylor when a woman I'd never seen walked up to my table and threw her drink in my face. Cold soda dripped down my chin while the whole diner went quiet. She pointed at me and said, "You've got some nerve showing your face here." I wiped my eyes and said, "I don't know you." She rolled her eyes and walked back to her booth. The waitress came over a minute later with a tight smile. "Sir, please don't harass other customers." Taylor leaned forward. "He didn't do anything. We've been sitting here the whole time." The waitress walked off without looking at him. A couple at the next table was already shaking their heads at me. Then the manager walked over, arms crossed. "Sir, we've had multiple complaints. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." For sitting here, Taylor stood up. "Check the security cameras." The manager paused. "I'll check them, but I need you both outside." We walked out into the parking lot, and I still had soda drying on my face when the police car pulled in. The woman walked out and pointed at me and said, "That's him." He screamed at me and threw a drink in my face. The officer looked at me, then at the soda stain on my shirt. "Sir, I'm going to have to restrain you." I didn't say a word. He put the cuffs on and walked me to the back of his cruiser. Taylor looked at me, then turned and walked back into the diner. The woman stood in the parking lot shaking her head at me every few seconds, until the diner doors swung open and the manager walked out with Taylor right beside him, 2 cooks and a waitress behind them. The manager looked at the officer and said, "The footage shows her walking up to him and throwing her drink. He never left his seat." The officer turned to her. "I don't care. He deserves to be arrested. He ghosted me. We talked on a dating app for one day and he disappeared." Taylor shook his head. "He's been with with the same girl for 2 years. He doesn't use dating sites. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. But he looks just like him. The officer took my cuffs off and put them on her. The manager turned to me. Your meal is on the house. I'm really sorry. Taylor nudged me and said, I got your back, bruh. The kid from my AP physics class walked onto the football field for tryouts wearing an anime t-shirt and Star Wars Vans. Wesley sat in front of me in physics, correcting our teacher about projectile motion almost every day. His entire wardrobe was anime t-shirts and cargo shorts. And 2 weeks earlier, he'd bet me $20 he'd make varsity before I did. I took the bet because I'd been playing football since I was 7, was already on JV, and his only sport was Madden on the PS5. Coach handed him a football and pointed at the field. One throw, kid. Make it good or get off my field. Wesley turned the football over in his hands like he was inspecting it. He squinted down the field at the receivers stretching by the end zone. You good there, Magic the Gathering? One of the linebackers yelled. Yeah, he didn't even look up. You sure? You look like you're about to take the SAT. I already took it. The bench laughed. Coach pulled out his clipboard and tapped his pen against it. Today, kid, I've got 40 more of you to get through. Wesley waved at the receiver in front of him and pointed downfield. The receiver rolled his eyes and jogged out anyway. Wesley wiped his glasses on the bottom of his shirt and looked down at his Star Wars Vans. He scuffed the grass with one shoe and chewed the inside of his cheek. Then he lifted the ball over his shoulder and held it there long enough that someone on the bench muttered, he's not gonna do it. Then he threw it. The spiral cut straight through the air and dropped into the receiver's hands 50 yards downfield without him having to break stride. The bench went quiet. Coach uncrossed his arms. Where did you learn to throw like that? It's just projectile motion. Coach stared at him for a second, then handed him another football. Wesley hit the same receiver right in the chest. He made the third throw too. The receiver jogged back, looked down at Wesley's shoes, and shook his head. Bro's throwing dimes in Star Wars Vans. Coach tucked his clipboard under his arm and looked back at me. You're starting Friday, and you, he pointed at me, are backup. Wesley walked over to the bench and held out his hand. $20. I humiliated a professional expert in their field at 7 years old. I was obsessed with cars at the time and used to spend all day fixing larger toy models with my own mini mechanic set. So when my mom said she was going for an oil change, I went with her because I really wanted to watch. But then the mechanic said it would cost $3,000. My mom asked why, and he told her on top of the oil change, her engine fluid was dirty, her brake pads were worn down, and her air filter was clogged. My mom's face dropped because that was everything she had, but she didn't know much about cars and just opened her wallet. That's when I stepped forward and asked the mechanic to open the hood so I could check the engine. He laughed, but when he saw I was serious, he nervously popped it open. I pulled out the engine fluid stick myself and saw it was clean and golden, not dirty and brown like he said. His smile dropped and he folded his arms, but I was already crouching by the front wheel and pointing at the brake pads. These are still thick, they're not worn down. Why did you say they were? I could see him turning red, and then I popped open the air filter box he'd said was clogged. I pulled out the filter, shook out the dust, and slid the filter back in. I turned to the mechanic and said, that wasn't clogged. Even if it was, it took me 60 seconds. You should know how to do this. By now, the other mechanics in the shop were watching, and the owner had walked out from the back office. My mom looked at me with pride, and I turned to the mechanic and asked him why he lied to my mom and tried to charge her $3,000 when she just came in for an oil change. He went pale. He either had to admit he knew less about cars than a 7-year-old, or admit he tried to scam a struggling single mother. He muttered, I just looked wrong, and walked away, but the owner stopped him and requested his uniform. My mom got in the car, but then the owner tapped me on the shoulder and asked if I wanted to do the oil change myself. I'll supervise, but you clearly know enough. That afternoon, I changed my mom's oil.
My rides are built between dirt and concrete. It's got power, 750 watts of climb. Then, shred time, all the way down.
The relaxing pheromones of Speedway Optimum help your cat feel more comfortable and secure at home. When they pee outside the litter box or scratch the furniture, try Speedway Optimum from the #1 vet recommended brand available at these and other retailers.
And she didn't pay a cent. When I matched with Kylie on a dating app, she seemed completely normal, so I made reservations at an Italian place and showed up in a button-down and dark jeans. I didn't know what to expect, but when we sat down and I went to order, I ordered a beer at a completely normal volume. Kylie grabbed my wrist. Can you keep it down? People are staring. I couldn't understand what was going on because the restaurant was completely silent and nobody was looking at us. Sorry, I said quietly. She rolled her eyes. Now you're whispering? Just talk normally. Every time I tried to respond, she shushed me and looked around like I was causing a scene. I thanked the waitress for the bread, and Kylie reached across the table and put her finger to my lips. The waitress looked between us and raised her eyebrows like she was confused and walked away. You're so embarrassing. I started to wonder if Kylie had superhuman hearing, or if this was one of just thrown it across the room. Do you not have any manners? My ex would never. I raised my hand for the check. Oh, perfect. Now you're flailing your arms. She snatched the bill. I'll pay since you've made this completely unbearable. While Kylie dug through her purse, the waitress slipped me a folded note and walked away. I opened it under the table. Call me if you want coffee with someone who can have a normal conversation. Her name was Marion. She had drawn a smiley face next to her number. Kylie looked up, saw my face, threw her vape pen at me, and stormed out. The couple next to us leaned over. She comes in every week with a different couple. She pushes them until they yell at her because she likes to look like a victim in front of an audience. You're the first one who didn't give her what she came for. I left Zaria a generous tip and called her from the parking lot. My new landlord stormed in. Throw out the mud or get evicted. You can't have both. I pointed at Mufassa's vest. He's a medical alert dog. I have epilepsy, and he paws my leg 30 minutes before a seizure hits. I've lived here for more than 20 years, ever since I was 5. I can't afford anywhere else. Since I'm the landlord, I set the rules. If you wanted to set them, you should have bought the building like I did. You have 30 days to get him out, or you both are leaving. I nodded, but I wasn't giving him up or leaving. The next day, I brought medical records, but he didn't look up from his phone and shoot me away. When I offered to pay extra, he finally looked up and went, "Boy, I have money. Why would I take more of yours?" So I walked out, and a couple days later, I brought a signed letter from every neighbor in the building, but he didn't even open it, just slid it back across the desk. There were 3 days left before eviction. I sat at my kitchen table defeated with the form and wrote, "I choose to keep my dog." But that's when Mufasa started scratching at the door, whining at the ceiling, then yanking at my sleeve hard enough to rip it. He wasn't pawing my leg, so it wasn't a seizure. "Mufasa, what's wrong?" He dragged me upstairs to an apartment with the door open, where an old man was lying across the kitchen floor. I dropped to my knees beside him. Sir? Nothing. I called 911 and checked his pulse the way I'd learned to check my own. The paramedics burst in 6 minutes later. One of them turned to me. Another half hour and he would have died. They carried him out to the ambulance, and I rode with him to the hospital and waited next to his bed. An hour later, the landlord burst in. "Where is he? Where's my dad?" The man I'd just helped save was his father. He froze when he saw me with Mufasa, and that's when his dad opened his eyes. That dog saved my life. The landlord dropped into the chair, head in his hands. "My dad's been having heart attacks for months. I banned pets because I thought one would set him off. The thing I tried to throw out is the only reason he's still here. The dog stays. You stay. As long as you want." My new landlord just spent 30 days trying to evict the only thing in this building that saved his dad. I flew to Tokyo for $1 million hide and seek tournament and won by hiding in the dumbest spot ever. The set was full of hiding spots, cabinets, hollow walls, trapdoors, paintings that slid open into the wall. 10 of us were playing, and the last person hidden won $1 million. The host pointed at a chalk square in the corner, with a chair in the middle facing the wall. The chair was for the seeker to sit in while he counted, but he chose to stand at the wall instead. The buzzer went off, and everyone else sprinted for the cabinets and trapdoors. I tiptoed over to the seeker's chair, sat down facing the wall, and waited. The seeker finished counting and walked straight out of his square without ever turning around. He pulled open a cabinet, yanked a kid out by the ankle, and that was one down. On the monitors above the set, the producers in their booth were cracking up watching me sit there. He sped through the rest of the room, ripping open hollow walls and dragging kids out of trapdoors until only me and one other guy were left. Out of ideas, he walked back to his counting corner to think. He leaned on the back of my chair and looked around the room. His hand was an inch from my shoulder. He looked right past me at every wall and then walked off. He chased the last guy across the kitchen set and pulled him out of an air vent. The timer ran out and a horn went off. The host walked to the corner, pointed at my chair, and said one word, "Winner." The seeker spun around like he'd been slapped, saw me sitting there with my legs still crossed, and just froze. His own counting chair was the one spot he never checked. They handed me $1 million check while I was still sitting in his chair. A black car swerved in front of me on the highway and slammed on his brakes. I had no time to react, so my bumper crunched into his back end. Crash. He got out already on the phone with 911, walking toward me, shaking his head. I was just rear-ended by a reckless driver. I need police and an ambulance. I thought I was screwed because I had no evidence that I was innocent. But that's when I remembered the dash cam stuck to my windshield. I had the upper hand, so I just smiled. The guy rolled his neck and winced dramatically into the phone, telling the dispatcher his neck was already killing him. He hung up and limped over to my window with a smug grin. "Let me explain how this is gonna go, buddy. You rear-ended me, which means legally you're at fault. By next week, I'll have a chiropractor bill with at least 5 zeros on it, and your insurance is gonna cover every penny of it." He leaned close. closer. I do this twice a month. The trick is picking nice guys like you. It's easier if you don't fight it. I pulled out my phone and tapped open the dashcam app. I think it's easier if I show you this. What the freak are you doing? I turned the screen toward him. The app captured his black car cutting across 2 lanes and slammed on the brakes on purpose in 4K. He rolled his eyes. That footage doesn't prove anything. I held the phone steady. It will when the cops get here in 5 minutes. He realized he was going to lose the case, and he stormed back to his car and slammed the door. You can't leave the scene of an accident, I yelled. He revved the engine and floored the gas, swerving back into traffic without looking. Suddenly, I heard a car beep. Crash. He'd plowed straight into the back of a sedan. He stumbled out, clutching his head, staring at his crushed front bumper. I walked up, holding my phone. Looks like you just rear-ended someone, buddy. My son hadn't been outside in 3 months, so I bought my own PS5. I tried grounding him, hiding the controller, threatening the Wi-Fi, but nothing worked. So I walked into his room one night and dropped the PS5 box on his desk. Let's make a bet. Give me 6 weeks to learn Fortnite, then we 1v1. If I win, you come outside and shoot hoops with me. He laughed in my face. Bro, you're 40. Deal. I'd bought him that basketball over the summer, and he hadn't touched it once. I was going to make sure he used it. After 6 weeks of non-stop gaming, I walked into his room holding my controller. Today's the day. He picked up his controller, smirking. Easy, old man. Game 1, he rushed me with a shotgun. I cranked a 90, edited my wall, and double pumped him before he hit the floor. He sat up straight. Game 2, I built him into a corner and pumped him out. He leaned closer to the screen. Game 3, he started muttering at his monitor and rubbing his temples. Game 5, he was screaming with his hands in his hair. Game 7, he ripped off his headset and threw it on the desk. This isn't fair. You've been cheating. Game 10, he didn't even build. Just stood there while I cranked over him and finished him. He stared at the screen. The controller lay in his lap and he'd lost the will to even touch it. I patted him on the back. 10-0, buddy. Go get the basketball. He didn't move for a long time. Finally, he stood up, walked past me to the garage, and grabbed the ball off the shelf. We shot around in the driveway until the streetlights came on. I taught him a crossover. He airballed his first 3 jumpers and laughed when the 4th went in. I didn't grind Fortnite for 6 weeks to beat my son. I grinded so I could get him outside in the driveway to spend time with me. I was chopping onions in the restaurant kitchen when a customer walked in and told me, "My wife has cancer and 1 month left to live. Her last wish is to recreate our proposal dinner. Can you do that for us tonight?" He had tears in his eyes, and I instantly remembered. He proposed to her right here in this restaurant 5 years ago. I said yes. My own wife died of cancer, so I was willing to do anything. But then the man walked back out, and the owner immediately pulled me aside. I heard that. What if that woman dies here while eating? I'll get sued. I'll lose the restaurant. Get them out right now. I told him they were having their meal, but the owner scoffed. Fine. If you won't tell them to leave, I will. He stormed out toward the dining room immediately. I followed him out and saw the woman touching the rose petals while her husband held her hands. The owner walked up to them. "We can't serve you tonight. You need to leave." The husband asked why, and the owner replied, "Liability. If she dies here, I pay the price, not you." The woman's face fell, and she said quietly, "It's okay. I understand." She tried to push herself up, but her arms were shaking, and she didn't have the strength to stand up. I stepped between them. "They're not leaving." The owner's face twisted instantly, and he told me, "Just because your own wife died of cancer doesn't mean you need to be their knight in shining armor. Now get back in the kitchen or you're fired." He said it loud enough for everyone to hear. I was in disbelief and stepped toward him. "I have 3 Michelin stars to my name. You only know if they're staying, or I walk and your restaurant goes out of business." You wouldn't dare. I started taking off my apron. Okay, fine. They can stay." The owner stormed back to his office. I turned back to the couple, and the woman was crying. The husband shook my hand. "I'm sorry about your wife." I went back to cook their proposal meal. The owner's face was red, but he couldn't do anything. I brought out the food personally, and when the woman finished eating, her husband cried, "This is the most she's eaten in weeks." After they walked out, I took off my apron and threw it at the owner. Nobody talks about my wife like that. I quit. I walked home, and weeks later, a letter arrived in my mailbox. I went to the restaurant to give you this, but it was
Welcome to ProSwing, where cutting-edge technology is the ultimate indoor golf experience. Powered by Golf 2 Vision, our simulators bring the game to life with 4K graphics, real course conditions, and a moving floor for real-life play. Hone your skills with expert coaches from Ledbetter Golf Academy. Perfect your putting with Putt-E's guided system, or challenge friends with tournament play. Train, compete, have fun. Come see us at ProSwing in Chapin or Forest Acres and experience golf like never before.
closed down for some reason, so I found your address. My wife passed last night. Her last words were about the proposal recreation. Thank you for everything. I'm sure both Both our wives are waiting for us somewhere better right now. A student told a yo mama joke so bad, he made a student go missing. Trevor, the biggest kid in our grade, walked up to the skinniest kid and stole his food. I thought you said you wouldn't do this anymore. Well, how else am I supposed to eat? Usually, the skinny kid would just let him take it, but now he was clenching his fists. Eat another fry or you're gonna pop. The whole cafeteria went quiet. Then Trevor smiled. Yeah, watch out for the wind, buddy. Everyone laughed. Danny didn't stop. Fatty, you want another lunch? Looks like your shirt ain't mine. Everyone saw Trevor's dirty shirt and took pictures. Trevor was still smiling. Man, your mama's so skinny. She breastfed relaxing. The crowd lost it. We knew it was all jokes, but now it was free game. You don't bring up someone's mom like that. Danny stopped smiling and cleared his throat. The cafeteria went quiet. Everyone knew Danny was going to cook. Yo mama's so poor. She can't even afford to feed me after I'm done smashing. That's why I'm so skinny. Trevor stood there with his lunch tray and walked out. He hasn't come back to school since. A cop walked into my job and put me in handcuffs saying, Jordan Mitchell, you're under arrest for armed robbery. This is a joke, right? I laughed, but he started reading me my rights. Wait, no, you have the wrong guy. Security footage shows it was you, the cop said, leading me outside the store and to his car. He pushed me into the back seat and got behind the wheel. Sir, I swear to God that wasn't me. I have the most generic face on the planet. I'm a brown-haired, brown-eyed, average-height white guy. Half the people I meet think they already know me. The cop glanced at his rearview mirror. You can tell it to the detective. At the station, a detective slid security footage across the table of a man robbing a gas station 4 days earlier. Same build, same beard, same gray hoodie I had hanging in my closet. That's not me. The detective leaned back and said, 3 witnesses say they saw you rob that gas station. I was home alone eating pizza that night, but I had no calls, no texts, no proof of anything. Mom came to visit me in county, and I watched her study the footage on a tablet until her eyes went soft. Honey, that really does look like you. Mom, it's not me. She put her hand on the glass. I know, baby, but it looks just like you. My public defender, Tom, pulled me into a meeting room and laid it out. 3 eyewitnesses, a guy on tape that could be your twin, and no alibi. If we go to trial and lose, you're looking at 5 to 7 years. I can get you a plea deal for 2 years, and I think you should take it. I sat in my cell for 6 days, staring at that deal, knowing I was innocent, and knowing it didn't matter. On the 7th day, I told Tom I'd sign it. He walked me to the room, set the plea in front of me, and I picked up the pen. I was halfway to the paper when Tom's phone buzzed. He held up a finger and stepped into the hallway. I sat there with the pen hovering over the line and watched him through the window, pacing back and forth. When he came back, his face was white. Put the pen down. What happened? Same gas station got robbed last night. Same guy, same hoodie, and you were sitting in a cell when it happened. I set the pen on the table, and Tom picked up the plea deal and tore it in half. They dropped every charge that afternoon, and I walked out the front door a free man. My dad called me a complete failure because I grabbed the wrong size wrench. We were in the garage working on his Mustang when he yanked it out of my hand. That's a 9/16, not a half inch. Even your 12-year-old sister knows the difference. I told him he didn't need to yell, and he slammed the wrench on the workbench so hard every tool jumped. That's your problem. Soft. Always on those damn computers instead of learning to be a real man. You're an embarrassment. I tried to show him my honors program letter, but he waved me off. That's not real work. That's sitting on your butt pushing buttons. I walked out without a word and nearly ran into Mr. Garcia next door, struggling with a box on his driveway. Hey there, son. Perfect timing. I got this new security system and the instructions might as well be in ancient Greek. Inside his garage, he looked at my face and stopped. You okay, son? My dad hates me. Nothing I do is ever good enough. He put his hand on my shoulder. Parents don't always see what they have. Doesn't mean you're not valuable. I nodded and got to work on the cameras. Within 40 minutes, I had 8 cameras, motion sensors, and custom notifications all running on his phone. He tested the night vision and shook his head. The guide said 2 professionals need 3 hours, and you did it by yourself. My dad's voice boomed across both driveways. Where the hell did you go? I need the oil pan. We walked outside, and my dad stood between our properties with his arms crossed. Your son just installed my entire security system, Mr. Garcia said. My dad's jaw tightened. He should have been helping me. We were in the middle of something important. Mr. Garcia shook his head. Tom, I've listened to you work on that Mustang for 3 years. It's a beautiful hobby, but your son companies pay $6 million on my shoulder. I wish I had a son like you. My wife and I never got that chance. Don't fill his head with nonsense, Garcia. Real work is with your hands. Tom, Mr. Garcia's voice went flat. I run a construction company. I know what real work is. Your son has a gift, and he just got a full scholarship you don't even know about. My dad's mouth opened. A scholarship? Why didn't you tell me? I looked him right in the eyes. Because you called it sitting on my butt every time I tried. My sisters came running outside. Mr. Garcia, can we come reorganize your garage again? They clustered around us on the neighbor's driveway. My dad turned and walked back to his garage alone. I was meeting my girlfriend's parents for the first time, and as I straightened the tie I'd borrowed from work, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. My mom reached up from the couch where
Mm.
Her dad opened the door without smiling and didn't move until I held out the bottle. He took it, ran his thumb across the label, and muttered, "Haven't seen this one in a long time," before stepping aside. At dinner, he uncorked it, poured everyone a glass, and worked through his plate without saying a word. My girlfriend reached for my hand under the table while sweat ran down my neck. He finished his plate, set his fork down, and finally looked at me. "So, what are you studying?" I practiced an answer in the mirror, but it slipped my mind. "Biomedical engineering, sir. My mom got cancer when I was a kid, and she's still on a couch. I want to put her on a real bed." He picked up the wine bottle, looked at the label one more time, and poured every drop that was left into my glass. I worked 3 jobs putting my mom on a real bed before she died. That bottle right there is the kind I bought her the first time. At the door, he pulled an unopened bottle off his rack and pressed it into my hand. "Take this home. Tell your mom hers was the best one on the table." I straightened my tie. My hands weren't shaking anymore. My dad waited for every parent to leave the field before he walked over to tell me. Embarrassed, my dad got close enough that only I could hear. "You told my pitcher after he struck out that he needed confidence, not control. You've been in my dugout all summer, and you still don't know baseball. Get in the car." He didn't say another word until we were halfway home. Then he pulled over and turned to face me. "You sit in your room every night playing baseball on a screen and think that teaches you the game. No simulation is going to fix what you don't see." He pointed at the road and walked the rest of the way home. I walked home kicking rocks the whole way until I ended up on my own street. Mr. Reyes from across the road was on his porch holding a phone in one hand and a full beer in the other. He waved me over and asked if I was okay. I sat on the steps. The betting alley was open on his phone, trying to bet a parlay. 12 games to lose. I always lose because I pick with my heart. I looked at his first bet. This pitcher's on 3 days rest. His fastball loses speed after the 4th inning. Flip it. He squinted. "How would you even know that?" I played the same way. The pitcher made matches that real numbers. He went back to school. The next pick was 36. He pitched 4 nights in a row so he wouldn't finish the game. Flip it. His next pick was a hitter facing a lefty starter, and that team had nothing to get off the lefty all month. Leave it. Mr. Reyes set his beer down and handed me the phone. We went through every game in the car. I got home after dark. My dad was on the couch watching the game. Didn't know how. The doorbell rang before sunrise. I came halfway down the stairs as my dad opened the door of his room. Mr. Reyes was on the porch holding his phone with both hands and shaking. I meant to put in $10. I hit the wrong button. 1,000. He turned the screen toward my dad. 12 for 12. Every game your son called. My dad just stared. Mr. Reyes pushed past him, grabbed my shoulder, and held out $214,000. He reached into his jacket and pressed an envelope into my hand. 20,000. You're buying your first car. My dad looked at the envelope, then at me. "I didn't know you had that in you." I looked right back at him. "I guess you just needed a little more confidence." Mr. Reyes put his arm around my shoulder, and we walked outside. My dad stood in the doorway and watched us go. My wife came home bawling her eyes out, saying she had something to tell me. My stomach dropped because I have a vasectomy, but for the last 3 months her belly has been slowly getting bigger. We hadn't spoken about it because I didn't even want to entertain the possibility, but now I had no choice. She sat me down and told me she just went to the doctor and they told her she was pregnant. I instantly flipped out, standing up and telling her to get out, but she grabbed my arm. I never cheated. I swear I don't know how this happened. I asked her if she thinks I'm an idiot and went into our room to start packing her things, but she followed me in. I couldn't do this to her. I made her take a pregnancy test on the spot, which she happily did, but when it showed positive, she dropped on the floor crying. "That's impossible, please believe me." This went on for a week, her insisting she didn't cheat, and me telling her to then explain the child growing in her belly. She never could, and every time she took another test, it was positive. I ended up staying at a friend's house to be away from her, but 3 days later she showed up at his door. Her hair was thinner from the stress, and she had visibly lost weight because her appetite was so low, but her belly had actually grown a little. She pointed to the mini lie detector test in her car, saying she'd just spent her work bonus on it and wanted to take it right now to prove she never cheated. I hooked her up and spent an hour grilling her. Somehow she was telling the truth. Every time she said she didn't cheat, the test buzzed green. I was convinced she rigged the detector or something, but eventually agreed to drive with her to the hospital to get a second professional opinion. I felt like the world's biggest idiot explaining to the doctor that I have a vasectomy, but my wife is pregnant and we don't know how. He ordered an ultrasound first to confirm the pregnancy. They put the gel on her belly and then the machine lit up. What we saw wasn't a baby. It was a 3-pound tumor in her stomach, signaling stage 4 ovarian cancer. That's why her hair was thinner and why she was losing weight. My phone buzzed and I saw a bank notification that my wife just took out $3,000. I immediately felt my fists clench and saw her getting ready to take our kids to school. Why did you do that? You can't keep spending all our money on clothes. but she didn't say anything, just walked out. I knew something weird was going on, but a few minutes later, another notification. iPhone tracking deactivated. Oh no, I knew something was definitely wrong. Why would she turn her location off? But just before I could call her,
Out here, we work hard for the things that matter. Because there's no better feeling than making time for what matters most. And knowing this life out here is yours. Tractors of life, for life out here.
someone knocked at the door. I opened it, and two cops had their hats off. Sir, is your wife named Maria? Yeah, why? Did something happen? He looked like he was about to cry. Sir, there was an accident. Your wife's van had collided with a semi-truck. It exploded. There were 3 victims. My heart was racing. I knew he had to be lying. No, she was just here. Stop. I grabbed my phone to call her, but saw another notification. Receipts for plane tickets. That's what she spent the money on. She was trying to surprise me, and I got mad at her. He grabbed my shoulder. Sir, we have to go identify the bodies. You have to come with us right now. No, you're lying. Let me call her. I pressed call, but it didn't even start ringing. It just went straight to voicemail. No, please answer. Please tell me this is a joke. Sir, her phone was in the crack. It's unlikely it still works. I stared at the notification.
Did I need it?
got mad at her. He grabbed my shoulder. Sir, we have to go identify the bodies. You have to come with us right now. No, you're lying. Let me call her. I pressed call, but it didn't even start ringing. It just went straight to voicemail. No, please answer. Please tell me this is a joke. Sir, her phone was in the crash. It's unlikely it still works. I stared at the notification from earlier. Location disabled. I realized why that popped up. I started crying and fell onto the ground. The last thing I did was yell at her. I just wanted to say sorry, but they helped me up. We have to go. But just as we opened the door, my phone started ringing. Unknown number. I was about to press decline, but the officer stopped me. Sir, you should answer that just in case. You don't know who it could be. I was in no mood to talk, but I wiped my tears away. I pressed answer, but as soon as I did, I heard her voice. Hey, I left my phone in the van. I think someone stole it. Come pick us up. I couldn't breathe. I said, honey, are you okay? Yeah? Why are you crying, you baby? I immediately burst out in tears, telling her I was so sorry for yelling at her earlier. She had no idea what just happened. My teacher slammed the paper down on my desk. Book report. This is due in a week. Make sure you all read every page. She glared at me, knowing I'd do anything to get out of reading. She leaned down. Remember, if you don't pass, I'm holding you back a year. I just nodded and went home and played Fortnite the whole night, saying I'd start tomorrow. But as I kept getting wins every day after school, I finally checked the due date. Tomorrow, I completely panicked, shutting off my console. If I failed, I'd get held back. My parents would kill me. I was pacing around my room, completely panicking on what to do. I immediately looked up the book and breathed a huge sigh of relief when I saw there was a movie. I watched it twice just to be sure and made up an entire presentation with ChatGPT. I had to stay up the entire night, and when I walked into class the next day shaking, I could tell she was suspicious. She called my name, and I walked up to the front of the class. I read off my AI-generated notes, and I could see her looking more and more suspicious. I was standing there sweating. She told me to clear my mind, but it was almost any questions. Nobody raised their hands, and I was relieved. But then our teacher raised hers. My heart stopped beating. Yes, I was wondering if you could tell us what the difference was between the book and the movie. My heart completely stopped. Time slowed down. I knew it was over. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. But then it hit me. I'm sorry, miss. I never saw the movie. She just sat there shocked as I sat back down. My wife randomly started asking me, would you still love me if I was a rock? Every single day. I'd laugh and respond, I don't know if I could love a rock. Every time she'd smile this weak grin, and I just presumed because I didn't
Wait,
tell
I'm
her
still
my love for
recording.
the limestone version of her. But then one day she gave me her medical papers. She said, I've known for months. I just didn't know how to tell you. She started crying and said, that's why I've been asking, would you still love me if I was a rock? I needed to know. I still didn't understand what she meant, but then she passed away. I realized it when I sat at her grave for the first time. I looked at her headstone and realized that my wife is a rock now. It hit me that every time she asked, would you still love me if I was a rock? She wanted to know if I would still love her after her death. I started crying and placed the flowers down because now I knew I could love a rock, but only if that rock was her. I caught a 4-year-old licking the soap dispenser in my preschool bathroom. What are you doing? He looked extremely scared. Don't tell anyone about this. I won't do it again. It was a dare from my friend. I was weirded out, but just shrugged it off because he was a good kid and never misbehaved. Looking back, I should have called his parents, because the next day, I caught him pumping soap straight into his mouth. This time, I told him off. You're not allowed to go to the bathroom by yourself again. He looked sad, but nodded. But the next day, I found 3 soap bottles stuffed in his cubby, and when I went to go find him and confront him, the janitor stopped me. I caught that soap kid drinking from the dispenser again. I ran from bathroom to bathroom, trying to find him, and eventually, I found him sitting on the sink while bubbles foamed out the corners of his mouth. I rushed him to the nurse. While she inspected him, I asked, why do you keep eating soap? Suddenly, he started crying. A kid at nap time said my mouth smelled really bad. My big sister told me soap cleans the inside of your mouth. I didn't want him to say it again when we were sleeping next to each other. The school counselor pulled the other kid aside, and by the end of the week, Noah had his best friend napping next to him instead. Kids are weird. I dropped in at the skate park to show my 14-year-old son what his old man used to do, and broke my hip in 2 seconds. I hit the concrete on my side, the knee I'd torn at 23 on fire. The dragon from 20 years ago was staring up at me from where my deck had landed. Down in the bowl, half a dozen teenagers were laughing so hard, one kid was wheezing into his hands. Another one leaned over the rim with his hands cupped around his mouth. You break a hip, old-timer? My son was laughing right along with them. I limped over to my deck, picked it up, and tucked it under my arm. The same kid cupped his hands again. Yeah, go home, old head, before you embarrass yourself again. I started walking toward the parking lot. The wheezing kid scrambled out of the bowl behind me. Yo, wait. I stopped and turned around.
Well, that's going to be the end of the video. Bye.